Jard Renfrew has been convicted of murdering Undine, the daughter of his family's housekeeper, and has already spent a year in prison serving his sentence. Unexpectedly, Jard manages to contact Patrick Jane and makes him a disturbing offer. He claims to have crucial information about Red John, but he will only reveal it if Jane can help clear his name and prove that he was not the one who committed the crime. At first, Jane is skeptical. He has heard too many lies throughout his career and refuses to be manipulated by false promises. However, Jard mentions one detail that completely changes the situation. He tells Jane that Red John painted the toenails of Jane's wife with his own blood, an extremely personal and macabre gesture that Red John only carried out in that case, and which was never revealed to the press. That detail is enough for Jane to realize that Jard really does know something. According to him, Red John is not some distant stranger, but a friend of a friend. Reluctantly, but driven by his obsession with Red John, Jane agrees to help him. Jane then goes to Virgil Minelli, director of the CBI, and asks about the possibility of reopening the case. Minelli makes it clear that this is not legally possible. The trial has already taken place, and the conviction is final. Even so, Jane decides to investigate on his own, knowing that he is walking a very dangerous line. Patrick goes to the Renfrew family home, where Jard's mother and his older brother, Gardiner Renfrew, still live. From the very beginning, Jane provokes Gardiner with his usual attitude. He analyzes him, pressures him, and irritates him to the point where he nearly gets arrested for trespassing and provoking him. Gardiner behaves aggressively and defensively, which makes Jane even more suspicious. Jard's mother, however, takes a very different approach. Hurt, exhausted, and clearly marked by the family tragedy, she agrees to speak with Patrick. She tells him about Jard's troubled past, his impulsive personality, and the tensions that had always existed within the family. She also allows Jane to see the room where Undine was murdered, a place that still seems frozen in time. She gives Jane a crucial lead, the address of Undine's mother, the former housekeeper, who left the job shortly after her daughter's death and disappeared without a trace. Meanwhile, Gardiner, furious about Jane's visit, files a formal complaint with the CBI. Minelli calls Jane and is blunt. He must stay away from the Renfrews, or Minelli will be forced to fire him, something he genuinely does not want to do. Jane, true to his nature and determined to continue, makes a drastic decision. He resigns from the CBI. The news hits the team hard. Lisbon, Cho, Rigsby, and Van Pelt are devastated, but they are also determined to help Jane, even if it means disobeying direct orders. In secret, they begin investigating the case themselves. While reviewing old files, they discover a disturbing connection between Jard Renfrew and a former cellmate named Orville Tanner. Tanner was tried for murder in 1998, and during his trial he claimed that he had only been an accomplice and that the real killer was Red John. Nobody believed him at the time, and he eventually died in prison. However, Van Pelt locates the autopsy report of his victim, and the details match Red John's modus operandi, confirming that Tanner had been telling the truth. Minelli catches the team working on the case, and when he sees that they refuse to abandon it, decides to suspend them all. However, before leaving, he has a private conversation with Teresa Lisbon. He tells her that he will be away for a week, and unofficially makes it clear that they can continue investigating while he is gone. While the team continues investigating in secret, Patrick Jane still cannot locate Undine's mother, the former Renfrew housekeeper. However, Grace Van Pelt receives an anonymous instant message that proves decisive. Thanks to the information, they discover that the woman changed her identity and now lives under the name Vanna Clooney after purchasing a small condominium. The disturbing detail is that the message comes from a civilian, someone who should not have access to the CBI's internal system. When they check his name, they realize it is an anagram of Red John. The sender congratulates Jane on his work and encourages him to keep going, but disconnects before they can trace him. This confirms one of Jane's greatest nightmares. Red John has been watching them, infiltrating their secure network, and playing with them as he always does. This discovery leads Jane to an alarming conclusion. If Red John has gone to such lengths, it is because Jard Renfrew really knows something important. In fact, Jane realizes that Red John wants them to free Renfrew so he can kill him personally and make sure his secret dies with him. Jane and Teresa visit Vanna Clooney at her new home. At first, the woman is nervous and evasive, but she eventually breaks down and confesses the truth. At the trial, she testified that Jard had been harassing Undine, portraying him as an obsessive and dangerous man. In reality, Jard and Undine were lovers and were in a consensual relationship. Vanna admits that she was paid to lie, although she claims she never knew who was behind the payment because she always dealt with an intermediary. When they investigate that person, they discover that he recently died after being hit by a bus, eliminating another possible lead. With this new information, Patrick decides to raise the stakes. He takes Lisbon and Rigsby back to the Renfrew house and sets an elaborate psychological trap. They pretend they are about to make the entire truth public, including the false testimony, the cover-up, and the inconsistencies in the case, unless they receive financial compensation to remain silent. During the confrontation, Jane carefully recreates how someone other than Jard could have entered the locked room where Undine died. He explains an ingenious way to retrieve the key from outside, using papers and a gap beneath the door, proving that Jard could have been deliberately framed. The demonstration is not only convincing, but disturbing and leaves the Renfrews visibly shaken. Jane gives them an ultimatum. They have until 4 in the afternoon to call and make an offer. Against all expectations, it is not Gardiner who calls, but Mrs. Renfrew, surprising even Jane himself. Later, Patrick agrees to meet with her privately for tea. During the conversation, the woman maintains a calm, almost maternal facade, until she finally hands Jane a small vial containing Undine's blood. That object is the definitive proof. Mrs. Renfrew confesses that she was the one who murdered Undine. The truth is even more twisted than Jane imagined. The woman had discovered that Undine was actually her husband's illegitimate daughter, making her Jard's half-sister. Horrified after learning that Jard was in love with her, she tried to force him to end the relationship without ever revealing the real reason. When Jard refused, insisting that he loved Undine and would not leave her, Mrs. Renfrew decided to kill the young woman and frame her own son, convinced that this would teach him a lesson and save him from an even greater sin. She kept the blood as a kind of insurance, planning to confess only when she believed the time was right. With Mrs. Renfrew's confession, the murder of Undine is finally solved. The evidence allows Jard Renfrew to be cleared, and arrangements are made for his release into custody, since he remains a key piece in the investigation into Red John. Jane knows that time is running out. If Jard is exposed, Red John will come after him without hesitation. 2 weeks later, Patrick, Jane, Wayne Rigsby, and Kimball Cho arrive at the prison to pick up Jard and take him to a safe house, where he will finally be able to speak with Jane and reveal everything he knows. Jard looks nervous, clearly terrified. His behavior makes it obvious that he lives in constant fear, as if he already knows that his fate has been sealed. During the transfer, Jard manages to escape. He takes advantage of a moment of carelessness, runs away, and disappears before they can stop him. Shortly afterward, Jane receives a phone call. Jard is speaking from a prostitute's phone. He apologizes for breaking his promise, but admits that he does not dare face Red John. He says that crossing that line would be signing his own death sentence. The team traces the call to Tijuana, Mexico, and immediately heads there, hoping to arrive in time. However, when they enter the location, they discover that Red John has gotten there first. Jard Renfrew and the prostitute have been brutally murdered. On the wall, written in blood, there is an incomplete sentence, presumably left by Jard during his final seconds of life. The message is confusing. Jane and the team try to interpret it. Is he married? Is he a man? Is he many? None of the options seems definitive, and the message remains another mystery in Red John's endless game. Jane's frustration is absolute. He was so close, yet once again, he arrived too late. As they silently examine the crime scene, the prostitute's phone begins to ring. Jane picks it up and answers. On the other end, there are no words, only Red John's unmistakable laughter, mocking and triumphant. Jane listens without moving, his face hardened by anger and helplessness. Red John has once again proven that he is always one step ahead, that he knows every move, and that he enjoys leaving tiny pieces of truth behind just to torture his pursuer. The episode ends with Jane holding the phone, knowing that the war between them is far from over, and that every answer only brings more questions. If you enjoyed this episode, don't stop here. Head over to my channel and check out the complete playlist of The Mentalist, with every episode organized in order from beginning to end. Watch the full series, follow Patrick Jane's journey, and discover all the hidden details, mysteries, and secrets along the way. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more.